folks, once again, Forrest Elder, Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Cedar Creek. We are doing our tidbits of the trade, I guess you could say. This one is the top 10 buying mistakes to avoid when purchasing a vehicle. We've done our first 4 top mistakes. This is number 5. And so number 5 on the list is basically being aware of what you can afford, and to expand on that, making sure you know what your budget is and being very strict about staying in that budget. So it never fails. I see customers come in and I need something for a $450 payment, and then they look at this and that and this and that, whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden the $450 budget that they had all of a sudden turns into a $600 budget or $650 or $700 or whatever the case may be, sometimes even double. And which, granted, I'll never pretend or act like I know any individual's budget more than they do, because that would be complete ignorance on my end, our end, essentially. However, just due to math, unfortunately, sometimes what you're wanting to do won't fit in your budget. That's just kind of, like I said, it's something we can't avoid sometimes. So knowing your budget and sticking to your budget is always a good baseline of starting out. Okay, here's what I want to spend. And if you're not sure what vehicle will fit in that parameter, that's essentially what we're here for, okay? So if you come in and you're like, okay, I have a $500 budget, but then all of a sudden you're looking at a $50,000 or $60,000 vehicle, I'm not saying that you can't get that vehicle into your budget, but you need to have a pretty substantial amount of cash down or a lot of equity in trade or something like that to get the amount financed down to where the numbers work out to where you can get that into your budget there. So essentially, making sure you stay within the confines of what you can afford, essentially your budget. So before you come in, before you start shopping for vehicles, sit down with your significant other, if you have one, or whoever you have helping you put a budget together, or just yourself, and just kind of map out, okay, this is what I can comfortably afford to spend on a vehicle. This is my max what I would spend. And not saying you have to tell the dealership what your max is. You just have to know it in your head, okay? At the end of the day, the negotiation process, figuring out what's comfortable for everybody is what makes that a success for both parties. But like anything else, if you come in and say, hey, I have a $800 max budget, depending on which sales consultant you deal with or product specialist, in their mind, they're gonna go pick out the biggest, baddest, nicest ride you can get for that money that you may not need. So you figure out, these are my needs, these are my must-haves, and these are kind of my wants, and figure out what budget you think is reasonable to get those options and fulfill all that stuff. And when you get to that budget, make sure that you don't put yourself in a bind by going over that budget just because you talked yourself into it on the spot right there. It happens to everybody. It's part of the drilling process. You find something you just fall in love with, but you don't need it. And it's just part of it. We've all made impulse buying decisions before on whatever it may be, whether it be a TV or a couch, or, hey, I'm going to have the 12-ounce filet instead of the 8-ounce, even though I've never even finished the 8-ounce filet. It's just part of it, We've all done it, every one of us. And so the problem is that when you do it on this one, you're committing to 72 months possibly of a impulse buying decision. So when you have that budget, you stick to that budget. And I'm not saying you can't deviate from the budget. That's not what I'm saying. Just make sure if you do, you're comfortable with it. And at the end of the day, that makes everybody's job, mainly the consumer's experience more than anything, more enjoyable, because they're not stressing over spending substantially more than they originally planned on. And plus, if you do have a significant other, probably keep you from getting kicked in the shin when you get home, which is always a plus, okay? So, buying mistakes to avoid, The 5th one is figure your budget, stick to it as much as you need to stay comfortable, and go from there.